Okay, this video is a continuation of section 6.5. We're going to look at a second type of equation. Notice this one is different than the first type. Our first type had no logarithms in it. It did not say log in it. Type 1 had exponents that didn't have a common base. And we took the log of both sides to bring those exponents down in front. This type actually has the word log, or it might have ln in there. So we're going to learn how to solve this kind. Okay, so this one is actually a little bit easier, I think, than the other one. We are going to get rid of our log, but we need to get that log by itself. So notice this has a 3 in front. So I'm going to actually put it back up on top. So we'll have log to the third equals 2. Now this is really weird. So weird I call it, we're going to jack it up, okay? Because when it doesn't have a log, when it doesn't give you the base, remember that means it's a 10. Remember when we said if our bases are the same, it can disappear? So what we're going to do is we're going to jack this equation up and we're going to put 10 on the bottom. So it's going to be 10 raised to the log base 10 x3. And on the other side, whatever I jack up on the left, I'm going to jack up on the right. It looks really weird. You've never seen that done before. But what that allows us to do, all of that right there, the bases, that's going to cancel. So I'm going to get x to the third equals 10 to the second. So that just means x to the third is 100. Then I'm just going to take the cube root of each side. So that's going to give me the cube root of 100. And here it's asking us to write the answers in exact form. So we don't have to actually put that in our calculator. Let's work two more like this. Notice this doesn't have an exponent in front, so we don't have to worry about that. So now we just go and we jack it up. Notice the base is 5, so we're going to put a 5 on the bottom and make it the base on both sides. That means that's going to cancel out, and we'll get x minus 3x, 8 minus 3x equals 5 to the third, which is 125. And now it's just an algebra 1 problem. We're going to subtract the 8 so that we're going to get 117 and then divide by -3. So my x is equal to negative 117 thirds. Okay, but if you plug that in, notice, oh no, that's going to work. I was going to say it's going to give you a negative, but it won't because we're going to have this negative times that negative. So we'll get a positive answer. So that is the actual answer. All right, one more. Now notice this one has an ln. Remember, ln means it has a base of e. So I'm going to jack it up, but the base I'm going to put under it is e. So that's going to cancel. So I get 2x equals e to the fifth. And then I just divide by 2. So my answer is just e to the fifth divided by 2. And again, they're asking for exact form, so you don't have to plug that in your calculator. Okay, the third type has actual multiple logs. So the second type had the word log in it. The third type has the word log more than one time, but just on one side of your equation. So I'm going to combine those. Remember in the last section we talked about how to condense things. If you remember, addition meant we're going to be multiplying those together. So I'm going to shrink that so that I only have one log, and now it'll be x times x squared equals 3. So that's basically log of x to the third equals 3. We're getting ready to jack it up again. See, we've got our base 10, so we're going to put the 10 as our base. So we'll jack it up, and we'll get x to the third because all that log stuff disappears, and we get 10 to the third, which is 1,000. So x to the third is 1,000, and we can take the cube root of each side. So that's going to be the exact form. If they want a estimate, then it'll say an estimate and round it to, the tenths, hundredths, thousandths. All right, one more of these kinds. Again, it's a plus, so plus means times. So we're going to actually multiply those together. So I'm trying to get my two logs to one log. I'm simplifying that side is what I'm doing. X times 3x minus 13 equals 1. All right, and once again, I get to jack it up. It's log base 10. So all of that disappears. So I get, well, not that x, but all of this log stuff disappears. So I'm going to get x times 3x minus 13 equals 10 to the first, which is just 10. Then I will distribute, and notice I now have a quadratic. It's a squared. So I could move that 10 to the other side, and now I can use the quadratic formula. I could factor it. I'm just going to factor it since it's easily factored. So I have 3x and x, and then I'll have my 2 and my 5. And that gives me minus 15 plus 2 will give me minus 13 in the middle. And there's a bunch of different ways you can go from here to here. I don't really care how you get that. But these, I'm going to set each of these answers equal to 0. So now one of my answers I know is 5. The other one, I'll just do a little solving. So I get minus 2, and then I'll divide and get minus 2/3. So we have two answers, 5 and negative 2/3. We need to check it. Remember, this right here and this right here cannot be negative. You can't have a negative number in there. It must be positive. So notice the first one was log of x. Well, the x could not be negative 2/3. So we really just have one answer there. X equals 5. All right, we've got one more type of problem, and this is where we have multiple logs equal to a log. In other words, we have logs just like we did on this side up here in example 3, or type 3, except this time I'm going to have logs on the other side of the equation as well. Okay, so we're going to start off the same way we did before, where we try and simplify as much as we can. So this minus, do you remember what minus means? It means we're going to divide. So we're going to simplify and just have one ln on this side, the natural log of 5 plus 4x over 3 plus x. So I just put those in a division, and that's going to be the natural log of 3. I'm going to jack it up. Notice this is base e, so I could just put my e's there, and that lets that cancel and that cancel. So I wind up with 5 plus 4x over 3 plus x, and that's going to be equal to 3. So I no longer have any logs or exponents. So now it's just the trick that you've got to remember. We've had this trick before where we're going to cross multiply. Okay, so we're going to cross multiply. I'll put a 1 under here. So when I cross multiply that way, I get 3 times 3 plus x. And then when I cross multiply that time, I get 5 plus 4x. And now I'm just going to solve it like I would in Algebra 1. So I'm going to get all my x's on one side. So I got all my x's on that side. And I got my 9 on the other side, so I'll move that 5 on the other side. So I get x equals 4. I just need to double check and make sure that does not give me a 0 anywhere. I don't want a 0 here, so it doesn't. It also, I need to make sure it doesn't give me a 0 on the bottom. Or I should say, it shouldn't give me a negative up here, and it shouldn't give me a 0 on the bottom. And 4 doesn't, so that is my answer. Okay, let's do one last problem. Again, we have addition. So my addition is times. So I'm going to take these two things, I'm going to multiply them together. So I now have log base 3, because notice they're all got a base 3 there, is 2x times x plus 2. And I have log base 3 over here. All my bases are the same. I'm going to jack it up so that those disappear. So I wind up with just that equals that. So I'm going to have 2x times x plus 2 equals 16. Once I distribute, I wind up with a quadratic again. So I'm going to set it equal to 0. See if I can factor it. Notice it's got a greatest common factor, so I can take the 2 out, which makes it even easier to factor. So I wind up with what? Let's see, 2 times 4. So there's the factored form. And if I solved that, What would make that 0? X minus 2 equals 0. That would be a 2. What would make that 0? Would be a negative 4. So we have two answers, 2 and negative 4. We've got to make sure that these guys up here are not going to be, whoops, that one's not going to be positive. We need to make sure that those guys are positive. So if I put a 2 in there, I'm great. But if I put a negative 4 in there, it's going to give me a negative. So I just have one answer, x equals 2. And that is it for this section.